Good afternoon. This is Dr. Matthew Dunn, host of The Future of Email Marketing. My guest today is Jay Gibb, founder of CloudSponge. Jay and I just connected and had a 5 minutes conversation. There's going to be some get to know you in this, but Jay, welcome. Thanks for making the time.
Hey, man. Thanks for having me, Dr. Dunn.
CloudSponge, elevator speech version.
CloudSponge, elevator speech. So we help e-commerce businesses double or triple their word of mouth, the performance of their word of mouth. And the way we do that is with, it's actually it all starts with one button. There's a single button that most e-commerce sites don't have on them that is just add from address book.
Okay.
It allows a fan, a customer, a person who's bought something or, a repeat customer, it allows them to select people from their own address book to send referral emails or sharing emails in a way where they don't have to type anything, which is especially important, when you're using a mobile browser, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Everybody's gone through the frustration of, trying to type a comma separated list of email addresses.
Yeah.
You've seen it a million times, and it just doesn't. It's not a thing that people do. It's not the thing they want to do unless they're super, super motivated to do it. You got typos. You got losing people so they can go look it up and copying and pasting, and it's just a tough problem, right? And so a lot of sites that we see when they first discover us, they're sort of abusing the mail to link, which, the mail to link is supposed to be for like a contact us, but a lot of people will use it and they'll leave the to field blank. And then they'll hope that when the mail to link launches a browser, the person knows what to do with it. Right.
Yeah.
And they're coming to us to level that up and to get rid of that because it doesn't work and it's not trackable. Right.
So let me see if I've got the scenario correct, since I get to learn on behalf of listeners for this. If I'm browsing a site with great microphones and I want to tell my son, "Hey, check this out. It might help with the recording you're doing," instead of me thumbing in his address and just his email address, if that site has a button on the product page, I can tap that and send it to him. So it's from me through them to him. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. We do the address book part, right? So CloudSponge doesn't do the email sending, that part. That's usually a feature that already exists,
Sure.
Right? You've got a referral program platform somehow, either a WordPress plugin or a form plugin, or maybe one of the companies out there that does, referral emails with rewards and stuff like that, right? It's a big industry.
Mm-hmm.
What we do is we take those forms, like what you're describing on the microphone site, that are probably currently not performing very well,
Right.
because you're making people type email addresses, and they're just not going to do it.
Yeah.
And we provide a way for you to put a button beside that form field that just says add from address book.
Okay.
Click it. You authenticate with your address book, whether it's in, Gmail or Yahoo or Outlook.com or AOL or any of the other couple dozen address book sources that we support.
Okay.
The user basically finds the logo they recognize, they click it, they log into their account, they get all of their contacts right there on the site, like in your example, on the microphone site. They select all the people that they want to send it to, hit, submit, and then there's basically a comma separated list of email addresses gets inserted into the field for them. And they didn't have to type anything. They didn't have to, go open a different window or go somewhere else. Right. So it's a way to take that functionality that's already there and make it, 20 times better.
Yeah, I can see why the numbers you cited near the beginning make sense, because the odds of someone completing it, doing it right, go up. Multiple people, much more likely. Do some of the address books support providing like friendly name, Hunter Dunn with his email address, not just his email address?
They all do.
Oh, cool.
For sure with that one. right? We've got a whole matrix of what fields are supported by which one, because we can't like create data out of thin air. So it all depends on the individual and how they input the data into their own address book, of course, right? But yeah, there's a bunch of fields that are common, right? Like first name, last name, email address, phone number are the obvious ones, right?
Yeah, sure.
Most of them have like a suffix or like a salutation.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them have a job title. Mm-hmm. A lot of them have some of them have profile pictures. Some of them have social media handles, stuff like that, right? And so it's our job to sort of ingest what we can, normalize it into a format that's consistent, and then deliver that in an interface. And then our more sophisticated clients that they want to build their own interface and they don't want to use our contact picker, they're able to just interact with the data in like a headless way and build their own UI for it as well. And so sometimes we have a few customers that have done that as well.
Gotcha. It seems like very applicable to B2B, not just product. Much of that?
Yeah, it's definitely a huge, the use cases where it's super powerful are in any kind of referral situation, right?
Yeah.
The next one is crowdfunding.
Oh, duh. Yeah. Wow.
To referrals, but it's basically like project creators, as soon as they're done creating the project and they're like launching something, they always want to put in their address book and send it out to people. And they want to have more than just an email address, right? They want to have personalization with first names and last names and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
And then the same goes for backers, right? In a crowdfunding scenario, the people that are backing a project are almost always given some, after they're done with their checkout and they've given some money to the project, they're always given some sharing functionality to start it.
Right? Who else should join the band here, so to speak?
Yeah. So we totally dominate that industry, right? I think last time I looked, like 7 of the top 10 crowdfunding sites are using, the CloudSponge contact picker.
Wow.
Like Donors Choose and GoFundMe and all those big guys, they all use it.
Now, one of the things that people who don't work in software, which you do and have for a long time, don't tend to keep in mind is that things take maintenance. And I would guess there's changes and evolutions in the address books and then the recipient side, or the side of where you're dropping it in from the address book. What's that been like over the years?
I mean, that's the constant burn. That's the thing that we always have going, right? And from a sales perspective, then you've touched on the primary argument or friction point, or if you look at what I've written, on Quora and other blog posts and stuff, I state pretty plainly that our primary competitor, because there's no other real like unique contact picker on the market that you can go buy, our primary competitor is internal developers that think that this is easy. Right?
Yeah.
They see, oh yeah, I can build a Google Contacts integration, right? I could do that in a week or whatever, but they don't multiply that by the different sources that are important, and they don't factor in the permanent ongoing maintenance cost.
Yeah.
And the changes in data formats and policies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so, anybody who goes to the CloudSponge site, if you look at the news section of our site and the changelog section of our site, you'll see the constant stream of announcements and updates like, oh, hey, we fixed this for all of our customers. And this thing that was going to be like an imminent breakage on your site, like you don't have to think about it, right? Because you're us and we're taking care of the hard stuff.
Yeah, we took care of, we had a not directly related to email, but we had a project out of this company a while back that involved Facebook's APIs at a couple of levels. And I personally ended up so PO'd at the constant chopping and changing and permissions game there, and just the sheer bureaucracy. I said, like someone says, blah, 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 Facebook. The answer is no freaking way. Because it just is, oh my God, it's a drag. And it feels like you're doing the same thing over and over.
and a lot of those guys, they'll give you notice. They'll say, hey, by the way, this thing that's critical to your business that you're depending on,
Yeah.
it's going to go away in 18 months
Yeah.
or 12 months or whatever.
Yeah.
So a lot of times they'll give you time to adapt, right?
Yeah. To be fair, but
yeah, it's
but
always, most of the time there isn't like a direct replacement for it. What we've noticed is most of the time they're taking away something. They're not adding something that you're excited about. Right. So,
yeah. And it does put you in a got to get to it position as well, because as you said, that's precisely the real value proposition, the real point of friction that you eliminate is that you will handle that. You must have run into scenarios where something just flat disappeared and there was no way around it.
Yeah. LinkedIn, and way back, because we've been doing this since 2010. So what, 12 years now, there's a lot of stories. But LinkedIn was kind of the big one that caused a bunch of disgruntled CloudSponge customers that we just couldn't help. Right? We're like, sorry, we're victims of this decision as well.
Yeah.
But basically, what LinkedIn did, and they have struggled with this a lot, by the way, over the years. There's a lot of LinkedIn stories on this timeline. But the most recent one was, it used to be that you could, as the LinkedIn user, you could export your connections and get like a zip file that's got a bunch of CSV files inside of it, and import that into your CRM or do that with something. And they were kind of, on the side of the debate where you own your own data. This is your data. These are your connections, and you have a right to have it. Right. And they kind of degraded that deliberately over the years to a place where you could do it, but you had to wait 24 hours or 48 hours, or you had to jump through some hoops, because I think they probably had a lot of scammers, phishing biz, like contacts, and a lot of abuse there. Right. And then eventually they flipped it and they made it so that export is basically blank unless every individual connection of yours who would normally be in there has chosen to go and opt in to being in there. Yeah. Which obviously nobody's motivated to do. Right. So that was one example where, we had tons of customers that were getting a ton of value out of it, and their end users, right? Like in a really above board kind of way. And then it went away, and, we ended up having to take it off of our list of supported providers. Right.
Yeah. Well, that question of who controls which data is certainly one of the central ones of the time, right? I mean, you're in California, correct?
Yeah.
Right. So California just passed CCPA a while back. I know that's affecting the email marketing space, and Europe was ahead of us by a good stretch with GDPR. Have privacy laws and regulations become front and center in business for you?
On the sort of the persuading customers that like on the sales side of things, yeah. Absolutely right.
Okay.
But as far as our product is concerned, it didn't affect us much, other than just making sure we had the right stuff in our terms and conditions and privacy policy.
Right.
And the reason for that is because since day one, for the life of our business, we don't store this data at all. We're just a data processor.
Yeah.
So we're performing a function for the end user who wants to just use their own address book, right? Yeah. And for a moment that has to pass through our servers, but it never gets written to disk. It's not something that our customers can go like search and look up and use.
Right.
It literally just lives in the client, in the browser of the person who basically gave permission to read their own address book, right?
Yeah.
They're using their address book, and then it's gone. The only thing that's left in our system is a log file entry, so that like for billing purposes and for for debugging and stuff. Yeah. There's a log file that says like, this happened, it came from here, and this is the IP, this is how long it took, this is how many, records were in the address book, that kind of stuff. But we don't store any of the sensitive data. But that doesn't mean that our customers aren't now concerned about it, right? When GDPR was first sort of, in the news, before it became like a thing that you had to do, and everybody knew that it was a thing on the horizon, right? The big question was, how does this affect my referral program? right? Like, forget the address book. If I can't allow Dr. Dunn to type J. Gibb's email address into my website because he wants to send his friend a referral, then how am I going to grow?
Right.
Right. And there's a lot of legal departments out there that still are mentally blocked on that. They're just like, don't understand. They're like, it all has, well, from my perspective anyway, and I'm not a lawyer, but from my perspective, when I read through stuff like GDPR, the golden rule applies to almost everything. It's pretty much like treat other people's email addresses the way that you would want yours to be treated, right? If Dr. Dunn gave you Jay Gibb's email address to do a specific thing, he has a specific intent, he wants to send Jay a referral, then do that for him and then obliterate the email address and don't do anything else with it. Don't save it. Don't make a ghost profile. Don't send reminders. Don't do all that sketchy stuff.
Yeah.
But you can obviously like perform a function for your customer and send an email to the person they want to send when they're asking you to send it. It's all the other stuff, the background processes and the database saving and all that other stuff. It's a little bit sketchy that you just have to not do, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that seems like darn good guidance to me. There's a bit of maybe a conversational pivot, but there's a newsletter, paid newsletter that I subscribe to. I was talking with Chad White about this the other day. Actually, I sent him, I said, do you read Stratechery, the newsletter? And he said, no, I haven't. And at the tail end of this newsletter, which I pay for every month and read every morning, it says occasional forwards are okay. And so in a very cherry-picked basis, I'll take something that is super relevant or someone I just want to do. It's like, here you go. You're going to love reading this. It says occasional forwards are okay. All I'm trying to do is help Stratechery grow because I think so highly of the caliber of their content. But it's a fair amount of manual labor for me to do that forward. Right? It's like I've got to have it, type in the address, et cetera, and off you go. You take that piece of the friction out of the equation. Hypothetically, Stratechery could have a occasional forward this to one of your friends right on their site, right?
Yeah, and several of my customers are like in the newsletter,
right,
and they do that. A lot of them will maybe be a little bit more aggressive than that, like they're actually providing rewards for those kinds of referrals and things like that, right?
Yeah, it makes sense.
And so, that's exactly where we live, right? Is in those places where, you see some content that you like and there's some, way for you to share that content, whether it's a forward or, a landing page that's, showing your milestone rewards or something like that.
Yeah.
And then, right where you would normally have to type in your friend's email address, instead of doing that, you can just select, multiple friends from your address book. Right. And that's how we end up earning the catchphrase, right? The double the performance of your word of mouth that I mentioned when at the beginning of this conversation. Because what ends up happening is once it's so convenient and there's no typos, especially on a mobile device, then people do more of it, especially if they've got some kind of incentive. If there's a reward for them, then they'll do more of it. They'll think of more people who might be interested in that newsletter, and they'll check those check boxes, right? They'll deliberately share with more people.
Oh, nice. We are in we're totally conversationally segueing. We are in a funny renaissance for email as its own viable content channel. Substack comes to mind. Stratechery comes to mind. There's a company that's one of your customers that just got a high valuation coming to mind. Then the Hive and some of the others. I like all of a sudden we're like, oh, look, I could send you text that you paid for so that you could read it instead of having login and website controls that you just hand out. Like, oh, you mean like an email newsletter? What a great idea.
Yeah.
Kind of funny.
It's been amazing. Yeah. The one you're referring to is probably Morning Brew.
Yep.
And those guys, their success and their announcement of the valuation they achieved, it created a huge wave of inquiries for us. Right? We're just like, a lot of these people are like, oh, holy smokes. Like, I didn't realize that this was possible with a newsletter business. And granted, like, they're genius writers. Their writing is incredibly good. And, they attract some of the best, advertisers, and like they're doing everything right. In my opinion, they're a really solid company. Um, but it definitely, as you say, like, it kind of brought it back into the foreground, right? Where it was like, oh yeah, like I used to think that email newsletters were, either dead or sort of, more of a, um, like a technique for building a brand, or, a personal brand, or kind of a spammer thing. And, these guys have built a real company around it. These guys have built a really high revenue generating organization, all starting with newsletters. And now they've got several. Like, they used to just have the morning brew, and one newsletter is basically like your news every morning, right? Which I still subscribe to. But now they've got like marketing brew and a whole bunch of other, different niches. And they're just blowing up, so they're, in my opinion, they're kind of the gold standard for the newsletter referral business.
It's kind of cool. And it takes a whole bunch of the things that would be a maintenance pain, if you could ever maintain it, to protect content in some other got to go there repository, like a website or a social media forum or something like that. It's like, yeah, the old girl's still got some legs, right? Email. She really does.
Yeah, it's not going anywhere.
It's not going anywhere sometime soon. Does text SMS play a role in what you do, or have you had that request?
Yeah, sometimes. So our customers can get anything that's in the address book. We give it to them, and our product has a way that you could modify what's displayed. If you want to show a column of phone numbers instead of a column of email addresses, you can do that. But yeah, we'll have, like, for example, another one of the use cases, one of the sort of segments that we're pretty popular with is event invitations. And, like Evite type companies, right? And sometimes they want to give people a way to, send those invitations via text message using, Twilio or some other tool, right?
Sure.
And so in those cases, where, a user of their service is motivated to, fill out a spreadsheet, before they discover us, most of the time what they're doing is they're giving their customer either a form that's got like first name, last name, phone number, or email. And it's like got 4 fields on a row, like over and over and over again down the page, right? And you might have seen something like that before. And then there's this sanity relief. There'd be a button somewhere that says like download a spreadsheet template and fill it out and upload it, right? And you'll download this Google Doc or an Excel spreadsheet. You can fill it all in or whatever, and then upload it, right? And it's real clunky. And we have customers that are in the e-cards, like holiday cards kind of space, right?
Yeah,
and just very similar UI, right? In those areas where, you want to set, or wedding registries is another one that kind of looks the same way, right? Where it's like, you got a big list. Sometimes, you want to send out 100 or 150 holiday cards, or you want to invite a bunch of people to a wedding or a registry or something. It's not just a couple friends for a referral program, right? And those are like sort of special enough that you don't want to just put your uncle's email address. You want to also like personalize the email with his name, right?
Yeah.
And so that's why those forms have to be, there has to be more data inputted into those forms.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so those use cases are real powerful for the address book as well.
Huh. So, and all of us now are guilty of the, oh God, that's too much work, right? It's like, if someone says, put the email address in here, yeah, I might do it. If someone says, put 5 of them plus first name, last name, yeah, you just lost me. Like, I'm not going to do that manually, especially on a mobile device. I don't think so.
Not going to happen.
Not going to happen. Yeah.
Well, and then, if they want to do like the guys about SMS, if they want to do that part, they want to send SMS or email, that's another data field. So you're taking what was first name, last name, email, and now you're making it even more with the phone number. In our case, they can just kind of stick it in there and then use that phone number and pump it into their, their SMS delivery system.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And SMS, no typo tolerance is there. I've had a few guests on this podcast who are in the SMS, MMS, the other messaging space, and it always makes a fascinating conversation, like how channels kind of jockey around, find their fit, but the old ones don't tend to go away. They either tend to reinvent or refine what role they play, but they don't tend to evaporate. I mean, to be fair, I don't send faxes anymore, so that one pretty much seems to have died.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that for me anyway, I think the difference is that they're open networks. Email and phone numbers they're not like proprietary platforms provided by, by Facebook or,
Yeah.
TikTok or whatever, right? It's like these are open. Everybody's got one.
Yeah.
And I think for me anyway, for that reason, like they're not going to go away. They're just never going to go away. They'll always be important.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so as well. I mean, someone made the quip, if you don't have an email address, you're digitally homeless. I'm like, well, there's some merit to that one, honestly. Because I don't know where you are, but when I fill in, sign up for X, because I sign up for way too many things, right? Like most of us. When they offer the turnkey, click this button to sign in with Google, Apple, Facebook, like, no. I'll give you an email address and I'll set a password. Why? Because I know I have long-term control of that.
Right.
It's just that simple.
Yeah, I sometimes I do steer clear if I've got the option, mostly because I use a password manager and it's no extra effort for me.
It's no extra effort, yeah, same.
I like it that way and it's fine. But for me, the problem in those UIs is when they give me more than one choice.
Yeah,
and I have to channel my future Jay. Say, if I come back to this thing 2 years from now, am I going to remember
which are you?
Did I choose to log in with Twitter or Google, right? And I don't know which.
Yeah,
I even still have that problem with Medium.
Yes.
That one, I have to actually remember that.
Yeah.
I created my Medium account a certain way, and I've gone through that sign in the wrong way. Right? Yeah, and then I end up with a new account, and I'm just like, I know that I have more followers in this, but now it's saying like I have 0, and it's all because of those multiple options there that if they're more than one of them is applicable for me, then my reflex is to not choose either of them, is to use just an email address if I can.
Yeah.
And then that way I don't confuse my future self.
Right. Plus, passwords manager, hopefully coming along for the ride, because God knows it better. I hit a service the other day. I want to say it was mind.me, could be wrong. But the two the two authentication identity options were Google and Apple. And I had not seen just those two. It's like, it's kind of interesting. I thought, they're probably kind of mobile centric.
Mm-hmm.
And, I happen to be on a web browser on a desktop. So like they're saying, you're going to end up on a mobile device. It's going to be one of these two. Okay. That's a fair bet. Right. Yeah. But no email option. And I did pause for a minute and go, maybe I'll just close it and say no, because I hate being forced down the pathway that ultimately says, and you will not leave. I opted for Apple, by the way, because it said, yeah, no darn way I'm going to end up with no Apple devices anytime soon.
Well, without having seen it, I guess I would guess that they did that because those are the two identity mechanisms that are connected to your payment methods.
True too. Yeah. True too.
Google Pay and Apple Pay.
Yeah. True too.
At some point in your journey with that company,
yeah,
they're probably going to try to sell you something, and they're probably going to use that to suggest how you probably would like to pay for whatever.
Are you Apple, Windows, Linux? Like what's your preferred personal technology cloud?
When it comes to devices, we're an Apple household.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to cloud stuff, calendar, email, photos, that kind of stuff, or Google?
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Apple devices everywhere. Google Cloud all over the place, laid on top of it. I find Apple's cloud services irksome at best and subpar to say the least. But not going to exit either of them. I was going to ask you though, I mean, as an Apple user, I hit something the other day where I ended up purchasing from the phone, and I'm not an existing account like an Amazon app or something like that. It was like this popped up. I land on the site. I'm like, yeah, that does look like something I want, and it was so flippin' seamless to pay. It was like the Face ID
inside a Safari browser, not an app.
Oh yeah, because it popped up the link in Safari, but it was like, wow. Okay, now I start to see the long-term bet on digital payment because it's taking longer than we all thought, but lowered the friction of opening my wallet by a long margin.
Yeah, I had a similar experience, and I can actually remember the company I was using. It was kind of a joke for a friend. I bought Cameo, Cameo.
Yes, yeah. Get someone semi-famous to record a video for them.
That's right. Yeah, in this case, it was Bret the Hitman Hart, the wrestler. I was hiring Bret the Hitman Hart to like make like a hype man video for a friend of mine. Is it like a April Fool's Day joke kind of thing?
Yeah,
and they had that experience. They probably still do. And yeah, they also have an app, but I didn't need it. I was just using Safari on my phone. I was waiting for one of my small children to fall asleep, sitting in in the dark in a chair. And I was like, oh, cool, Brett. And I was like, just going through this checkout process, killing time. And then all of a sudden I was done. And I was like, wow, like this Apple Pay in Safari experience is like perfect. Like it was really, really
quite something. So that's where you guys had come in. It's like getting the Brett part of it right would be so easy, right? Your button and Apple's button and you're done.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that we love too is because when you're in the Safari browser, you don't have access to the contacts that are on your phone. Even if you're using your phone, you need to be using an app to have that like super convenient access to the address book that's on your phone, right?
Yeah.
And so our customers are, they use our product to create the best experience possible. It's not quite as seamless, right? But they do that. They use CloudSponge to create the best experience they can inside a mobile browser environment, right? Mm-hmm. And there's a little bit of innovation happening in Android, specifically the Chrome browser on an Android device.
Okay, makes sense.
Does have a Google contact picker. Mm-hmm. It's like a beta project right now. Mm-hmm. We'll be the first ones to integrate with it, right? Because it's going to just make us all that much better, right?
Yeah,
because we'll be able to roll it out to all of our customers as soon as we feel like it's ready, as soon as it's good enough, right?
Yeah.
But you will start to see in Chrome on Android devices, you will start to see the ability to use your locally stored contacts on the device rather than having to use the sort of the Google OAuth in the cloud, journey that we're all used to. It's a little bit more native, right? It's a little, and I have every reason to believe that Apple and Safari will follow up eventually, and they'll make it so if you're on an Apple device using a Safari browser, that they'll create some pathway to be able to expose your contacts in that scenario as well. So,
yeah, we're not done, right? We're not done fitting all these pieces together. If you actually watch in the course of a day, the number of things you'll end up doing that are sort of the human bridge between system A, system B, system C, system X. Like, really, how many times have I typed my name, copied and pasted something like over and over and over? We're used to it, but right? Like I resent banking and finance apps that don't have the native ID on the device working. Like, what do you mean I have to sign in? Oh my God, that's so much work, right?
Yeah, you just want to give permission to use your face and
Yeah. Or thumb when you have, in the older one. But yeah, something like, again. And yes, I should have it all in the keychain, but then there's the dueling password managers, and that's a whole unsettled battle. I've been a one password user for at least 15 years, if not 17. Which was early days for the new Mac only back then, but they just got like $1 billion valuation the other day on a fundraising round.
Yeah, I didn't know that they'd been around for so long.
They have. And you know what? At AgileBits, it was 2 guys in Canada when I started, and they were terrific. They were terrific even then. I'm like, these guys are going to stick around. I jumped out of the Windows environment back to the Mac, ditched RoboForm, hunted around, said, oh, I like this one a lot. And watch them grow over the years. And it's like kind of cool. And now you realize that password management that's a fairly important little piece of the ecosystem that we all live in.
Yeah. I mean, everybody, even people that don't use a computer every day like I do, they have hundreds of logins.
Yeah, hundreds of logins.
Ordinary people have hundreds of logins, right?
Yeah.
I probably have a couple thousand.
Yeah.
If I actually looked at my password manager list, it would probably be pretty staggering.
Yeah.
I get a lot of comfort from the fact that, no 2 passwords are the same ever.
There you go.
And now the password managers are starting to do, I don't know if all of them do it now, but I know some of them started to do the 2-factor authentication as well. So you don't have to.
Yeah. Keychain actually does that natively, although it's god awful to use. They need to make that better. I'm a little surprised Apple hasn't more explicitly jumped into that job. It still feels like kind of like a reach around to use the keychain for that.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not a big fan of Apple's identity stuff in general. I think for me, it's partly because in my house, I have several identities, right?
Yeah.
And devices that are shared between those identities.
Yeah.
And I've got, in my professional life, I've got several projects where I've used different email addresses and I've got different preferences and things like that.
Yeah.
And I think Apple's just not good at that. They're just not,
they want it all in the walled garden.
They want to just treat one human being as one human being. And they haven't realized that, sometimes my personality as a volunteer for the Cub Scouts should be separate than my personality as an entrepreneur at CloudSponge. Like those 2 things really don't have a lot of overlap.
Yeah, exactly.
It was me, right? And so those types, for example, like those types of things, like I find that that's where if I am frustrated with Apple, it's usually in that area somewhere, right?
Yeah, it makes sense. And even if you have a ton of, devices from that, devices cooperating, you're probably laying multiple IDs on top of that as well. One of my sons was more or less using my Apple ID initially, as we sort of stepped them into smartphone land. And this is years ago. And it became obvious it was a really dumb idea at a certain point. Like,
right.
You reset my Apple password. Oh God, no. Like, oh no. Yeah, it was a mess. So, yeah. And I don't think that's an easy problem to solve, to be fair. It's a very tough, messy, weird, problem and inherently insecure if you do solve it. So, yeah. And Google Microsoft made a play for that years ago, early internet days. They wanted to be the source of identity and authentication, and it just fizzled.
Yeah. The Microsoft Passport.
That's it. Yeah. That's it.
Right. Yeah. I'm dating myself now. But
yeah, me too.
That.
Yeah, you do this stuff long enough, you sort of like, yeah. This will come and this will go and there'll be another one. But P.S. we'll still be using email. Just got to tell you that.
No doubt about it.
No doubt about it. Well, where do you see taking CloudSponge in the next few years, Jay?
Yeah, with CloudSponge, we are. So if you think about the shape of like a bullseye, right? And the center of the bullseye for us is that like core logic that connects with the address books and like it pulls out that data and normalizes it in the form of an API, right?
Mm-hmm.
The next circle in the bullseye is the contact picker, which is this tool that as I've explained to you, has like several different use cases. You can plug it in. It starts with that one button. You can put it into a referral form. You can put it into e-cards or crowdfunding or whatever. It's kind of up. The trade-off, the problem with that for us is that the only people that can make use of that are developers or companies that have like engineers that are able to plug something like that in.
Yeah.
Figure out how to use the API or write some JavaScript code and like weave it in from a technology perspective to make it work with whatever their use case is, right? So up until now, all of our customers, one of the things they have in common is they've all got some kind of engineering talent or engineering bandwidth that they're using to sort of plug into the CloudSponge product somehow, right? And so the next sort of circle is where we're going next, which is taking what they're doing and learning from all of them and starting to build something that's a little bit more no code, a little bit more plug and play.
Gotcha.
Taking some of those use cases and making it, like, for example, we're right now we're launching a WordPress plugin called Better Sharing. And it's like something that anybody who knows how to make it, put a plugin into a WordPress site, and they want to have basically like the world class, like the best in breed sharing interface that includes the address book, like contact picker, and to sort of takes all that stuff that we've seen our successful customers do, and we're able to sort of fold all that into something that doesn't require engineering talent to get the value, right?
Nice.
It's that basically the one more layer of abstraction.
Yeah.
Right. Really trying to get to those agencies, especially agencies that are serving e-commerce clients, like WooCommerce and Shopify clients, and agencies that are setting up those e-commerce stores. Providing that extra layer of abstraction so that, it's a little bit more approachable, right? They can install a plugin, do some visual configurations, do some personalization of those emails that go out with the address book content, right? With names and stuff, so that the emails increase those open rates and those click-through rates. And then, building integrations with other products and basically just trying to get into a place where it's a little bit more point and click and no code and a little bit less, JavaScript and JSON and APIs and cross origin resource sharing and all this stuff that our guys need to understand. Our current customers do understand. For us, that's a really fun and lucrative market. But it's a much bigger market if we can sort of solve some of those problems and make the whole thing a little bit more approachable. So
it's sort of the no code version. You said it.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, that's the category that WordPress plugins kind of are falling into, whether they say that or not. I don't know, right?
No,
but it's kind of the no. You can always open the hood and get into there, and it is open source, and you can go change some stuff if you want to. But most people don't. Right? Most people they just do what the plugin does and ask for some support, right? So So this year we're launching Better Sharing for WordPress, and anybody listening here that wants to check it out, I'd love to get.
There's at least a couple dozen companies out there using WordPress.
We chose WordPress first because it's a massive market. And, if you think about a spectrum of engineering skill set, and if you put where we currently are on one end of the spectrum and Shopify on the other end of the spectrum, WordPress is in between the two, right?
Makes sense.
You need to be a little bit technical to be able to make a really beautiful WooCommerce store. You need to understand how to be a web developer, or at least have one. And then eventually, you'll graduate, or we'll graduate to also serving Shopify, where it's a closed system that you have very little control over, right? So for them will be, building apps and integrations with, with our partners who already have apps in the Shopify ecosystem.
That's going to be a fun evolution to watch. So if someone's listening and they are interested, they head to cloudsponge.com.
Yeah. Cloudsponge.com. We try to make ourselves very approachable. So there's lots of ways to contact us on the site. We've got a Slack community and email and chat and you name
They
it.
can always upload their address book and tell their friends.
Yeah, we've got some sharing.
You be your own best demo.
Yeah, there's a lead magnet there that, well, it's protected by an email address, but it's called the Better Sharing Workbook.
Oh,
it's just a PDF.
Yeah.
I think I don't know. I want to say it's like 10 pages, mostly like, pictures. But it's basically a way for e-commerce stores or the agencies that support them to sort of take an inventory of their sharing and look at everything they're doing, sort of as far as virality and the ways that they're getting their current super fans and the tools they're giving their current customers to spread the word about them.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a checklist. Like, here's all the stuff you could have, like check off the ones you do and don't, and then sort of audit those ones for certain functionality. Like, does it do this or this or this, or have you done that personalization or this personalization, those types of things. Mm-hmm. And so our customers get, it's a good way to just take stock of where you're at, and sometimes it inspires new ideas and new priorities for the people that download it.
When we get this episode, this conversation turned into an episode, I'm gonna go back and cherry pick all of the agency owners that I've had on the show and make sure, like, hey, you really need to watch this one. Have you thought about doing this? So maybe that's send some new customers your way as well.
Cool. Very
well, cool. Thank you so much for the time, Jay.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
My guest has been Jay Gibb, CEO and founder of CloudSponge. We're out. Thanks.
Bye.